Hello there everyone! Today, I'd like to go over the results of a community survey for the Crash Bandicoot video game series. Previously, we looked at the beloved characters of the series, from Chonks to Chipper to Chase Happy. But this time, we'll be looking at the games as a whole. The survey considered every major console and handheld game in the franchise, as well as more notable minor mobile game entries. Games on lesser-known devices like the Pocket Station weren't included, but the offer was on the table to add any game you guys liked. You might be surprised by the lower ranks in this regard. When it came to the Insane trilogy, it was heavily requested that I split the games into 3 separate games to vote for, although personally speaking, they feel similar enough to me that I wouldn't have minded ranking them together, but never mind. There were more than 700 individual game votes, and everything got at least 1 vote. Almost. Shout out to that one guy whose comment simply said, "Cortex rules the world here." Before we begin, please consider supporting me through my Buy Me a Coffee page, a link to which can be found pinned in my comments. I suffer from heart trouble that keeps me out of the typical workplace, as much as I'd like to work part-time at Dingo's Diner. So this is my only source of income outside of benefits, which can barely pay for 1 piece of Wumpa fruit, never mind the 100 that I need to get a life. Thank you very much, and without further delay, let's see what's at the bottom of the Bandicoot barrel, shall we? As previously mentioned, there were over 700 votes to count in this survey, and yet this first entry made my life a lot easier by somehow failing to secure a single one of them. With no votes whatsoever, we start with Crash the Titans on the Game Boy Advance. Jumping straight into this game's defense first, the art style for Crash himself is quite good. This is the kind of Crash that we should have had in the Titans era on console, not whatever this beanpole is supposed to be. It's also cool that instead of simply riding the Titans, you actually turn into them. The game even boasts a 3D surfing minigame, swapping out an Aku Aku surfboard for a stylish speedboat later down the line. Although it's not a patch on the shark chase levels from Crash Entrance, this one kinda hurts the eyes. And that's all there really is to carry the game, because it's otherwise a very rudimentary beat-em-up, with very little to discuss, unless you'd like me to write an essay about what they did to poor Crunch. It's one of those games where the jump kick reigns supreme. There's a surprisingly good amount of variety in the Titans for the console it's on, but they all control like toffee. For some reason, this game also has an old-style live system. Collecting Wumpa Fruit grants you extra lives, but the amount you'll need keeps growing as you go. If you save your progress with 0 spare lives, it sticks, so you better hope that you can find another one quickly. If you like the tedium of collecting everything in Crash 4, you'll love Titans GBA, and by love, I mean you'll wish to see it demolitionized. You'll approve of the novelty of the looks for maybe 15 minutes maximum, and then plug in something else. I mean, it functions, and there are worse games than this even higher up on the list that don't even have that. But being average is sometimes the worst crime of all for a game. Negativity sells is how the saying goes. Not to mention, it was very poorly advertised. I had comments stating that people didn't even know this game existed. And after this video is over, I'm sure you'll all forget again anyway, so let's hurry up and forget, shall we? Moving on. Oh, no wait, one more thing. Did you know that unlike the console version of Titans, Dingo Doll is in this game? And you can jack him like any mutant. So this is the first time that you can actually play as Dingo Doll outside of a spin-off game. Watch closely, as all the people who didn't vote for this game magically changed their minds. Sorry, a side note here, there should have been 28 games, as I forgot to consider Crash Nitro Kart 3D, which also didn't receive any votes. But because it's not as readily accessible as Nitro Kart 2, and the games are somewhat similar, I'll just leave it off the list and discuss the better-known Nitro Kart 2 later today. Sorry, blame my groggy mind. I don't sleep. What to sleep? This thing you're seeing, it's my waking nightmare. There are a few entries now with 2 votes each, sharing a joint 24th place. I'll try to rank them in order of which ones received a vote first, which means the lowest of this group is Crash Nitro Kart on the Game Boy Advance. I heard a lot of praise for this game in magazines back in the day, granted not as much as Mario Kart Super Circuit, but still. It managed to distill the console experience quite well. Power sliding is especially well done, much less slippery than Mario Kart could manage, and I kind of like how it's tied to the A button rather than L1 or R1. Once I got used to it, it became the highlight of the game. The game's a little rough to look at, but it runs smoothly, and it has characters not in the console version, such as Spyro the Heckin' Dragon. How did he get here? Unfortunately, he's locked behind Link into the GameCube version, so I can't show you him in action, but there's bound to be some footage out there. I played as Crunch and Tiny instead, because I have patterns. This game can make you feel a little dizzy in long bursts. The music isn't wonderful because it loops so quickly, and it's certainly more bare bones in its track design, and yet it's clear that an effort was made. On occasions, it feels more complete than the console version, probably because of the higher sense of speed. For reference, I'm sure that most of the Game Boy Advance games have ranked lower than they should, because of the lack of modern-day access, but this is far from the most egregious example of a Game Boy Advance Crash game being ranked too low. You'll see. Jumping ahead to the next generation for the next couple of games, we now have Crash Boom Bang on the Nintendo DS. I'd wager most of you expected this game to be dead last, and while it's pretty close to that, 2 votes are still 2 votes. It goes to show that pretty much every game out there is someone's treasured memory, except for Titan's GBA, you dozy bugger. This game kept me playing out of morbid curiosity. Turns out there are aspects to it that I quite like. The landscapes are big and pronounced for a third-party DS game, and the idea of everyone moving around the board at the same time is novel and something that Mario Party should try to embrace. And it reintroduced characters that were struggling for the spotlight, such as Crunch and a very shirtless Pinstripe. See, this is why he did so well in the character popularity survey, isn't it? Cheeky. It even has an interesting new villain, in the form of Viscount. It was nice to see the usual Rogues Gallery take a break, although it is strange that Viscount is trying to con the Bandicoots, while simultaneously attacking them with super fighting robots. And one fun feature is the Power Crystal item. It gives a player of your choice a temporary advantage in minigames, like a speed boost or immunity to losing points. I love the idea of this. Even if you're not involved in the minigame, it helps you indirectly screw someone over that you didn't want to win. Unfortunately, any potential is squandered, as for every one thing that Boom Bang does right, it does at least 5 more things wrong. Way too many problems to go into detail here, but they include a lack of minigames causing quick repetition, most of the minigames not even functioning properly. Look at me trying to change lanes with the atmosphere, or just open my parachute so I don't fall to the ground. Plus, there's a lack of balance on the boards, ugly character designs, and a strange story, even for a party game. The very first board of the game is probably the worst of the bunch. It can either last 2 minutes or 20, depending on if you roll the dice and land exactly on the goal, or else you'll get stuck in a loop on a tropical island of hell, watching the computer play minigames that you weren't invited to. Pretty much sums the game up, really. But the primary problem, you don't even have to do anything to progress through the story. Yep, no matter what position you finish the board in, the game continues on its merry way. Although each board has a different objective, again a novel idea, who cares? You don't even have to do them. It takes something truly special to make a game that you can win without doing anything at all, while simultaneously being confusing as heck when you do play it, and that's far from complimentary. Still, at least I had a modicum of fun with this game, due to its creativity and Crunch being playable, which is more than I can say for the next game. That's a bird. Widestep, you are hurting me. Put me down, please. You know, at least Boom Bang had an ambitious vision that it tried to go for. I'll give it that. Much more than I can say for the last joint 24th place game on this list, Mind Over Mutant DS. I'm sorry, the footage here isn't very varied, but I just couldn't make myself play this game for any longer. This is one of the most low-effort games I've ever seen since Sheep on the PS1. It's a lot like Sonic Blast on the Game Gear. Ooh, look at this. Our game has fancy 3D character models. And they're all terrifying. I want to get this one over with quickly. Somehow making the console game go from basic to entirely mindless over Mutant. It looks atrocious, it sounds more grainy than Insanity Beach's Sand.
Crash, 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 crash.
And it plays like you're having multiple root canal surgeries at the same time. Even double jumping feels like a gamble if it decides it's going to be nice and work today. I went back and tested other DS games just to make sure it wasn't my controller's fault. It really is the fault of this game when the inputs don't work. And remember Titans, as in plural? In each world of this game, you only get to use One Titan. That's it. That's your lot. Even the Game Boy Advance games manage more than that. The one point in favour that I can offer this game is that Crunch doesn't speak like Mr. T. I know, small miracles. I know that Mutant DS managed to squeak out 2 votes, so clearly it's precious to a niche. But personally speaking, I think you guys owe an apology to Titans GBA and Boom Bang, because this train wreck simulator should have gotten minus votes. It's the one game on this list that I had to stop playing at my earliest opportunity. Whether it was a rush job or a cash grab, as opposed to a crash grab, very different thing, this one was a total waste of time and money for everyone involved, be they player or developer. Whew, I need to load up some steam after that one, so here's a quick and easy one. We're moving on to 3 games in joint 21st place, beginning with our first mobile entry, Crash Nitro Kart 2 with 3 votes. Even getting 3 votes surprised me here. I didn't think this game was well known enough for it, despite one of its more beloved characters, Yaya Panda, being revived for Crash Team Racing Nitro Fuel. It's a very average 3D racing game, not too well animated, not too fast, nothing you haven't really seen before. Don't get me wrong, it's harmless, but understandably forgettable, like me. Its strongest aspect was the soundtrack, having one last semi-crack at the vocal style made famous by Crash Twinsanity and refined in tag team racing. Have a quick listen. Now we have the game I was alluding to earlier, Crash of the Titans on the DS. This game was made in a day when developers were keen to make DS ports as close to the console versions of their games as possible, with Amaze games being no different. It puts me in the mind of earlier Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games titles, for example. Unlike Mind Over Mutant DS, I truly respect the effort on this one, with its detailed, fully 3D hub worlds and levels, more callbacks to older Crash games using crates and collecting crystals to progress, and it's even fully voice acted. Though they add a laugh track to some cutscenes, which is a choice.
I've taken very careful precautions. I waited until he fell asleep. That pathetic hairball sleeps through anything.
The title screen alone exudes more charm than the entirety of Mutant DS, for how it draws comparisons to the original Crash Bandicoot. That's cute. Though it does recycle a lot of sounds from tag team racing, you'd know them if you heard them. If you enjoyed the whole jacking the Titans and using their powers gameplay, you could do far worse, but Titans DS's prime flaw is much the same as Mutants DS, in that it's even more basic on the gameplay level than the console version. Much of this is because the game can't handle so many enemies or as wide spaces. But then again, even the combat sound effects are dulled down. I couldn't feel any impact to my punches or kicks. Some of your moves can be controlled with the touchscreen or microphone, but mercifully, they're all tied to the B button as well. I don't know what I would have done if I had to puff into the mic so much. Extra points to this game for the ability to jack smaller minions, not just the Titans, and these interlude levels, where you play as Nina Cortex and transform cute little animals into the mutants. It reminds me a lot of Cortex's Twinsanity levels. There's such a thing as a game being too ambitious, but I wouldn't know much about that. I'm lazier than Crash himself by a country mile. Still, if you loved this one growing up, I can understand why. I preferred it to its older brother on the home consoles. It's a cool footnote in Crash's history, but I'm afraid that's all it will ever be. And look, Dingo Doll is here again, this time trading his flamethrower for a water gun. Maybe his weapon of choice in 4 and Rumble doesn't seem so odd now.
There's no junk in my trunk.
Don't ever say that again. Back a step now to the Game Boy Advance. And isn't this exciting? A game about both Crash and Spyro the Dragon? A crossover between 2 of the most beloved platformer mascots of all time? What could go wrong? As it turns out, quite a lot. Here we have Crash Fusion, also known as Crash Purple. One passionate voter commented, "People call it the spawn of Satan just for being a decent minigame collection. That doesn't make good use of the Spyro crossover. I'm convinced a lot of people who say it's the worst are just on the hate bandwagon." And to that I say, well yes, but actually no. Let's take a good critical look. The core platforming around the overworld shares the same strengths and weaknesses of prior Crash Advance games. Mine's the slide, that's gone for some reason. although it is also interesting to see the live system phased out in favour of losing currency on death. In this game, Wumpa Fruit actually serves a purpose as how you unlock levels and how you pay off this greedy bugger, which is a great idea to make Wumpa more valuable than it usually is. Exploring the world is a decent enough time. Why is he in chains? Too bad that the levels themselves are as cheap as chips to enter. They might have underestimated their players here. We suffered through Sunset Vista after all, we got this. The minigames are mostly fitting for Crash, from riding a polar bear to flying a jetpack. They are rather basic to control, and camera frustrations can be common, but they're far from terrible. They are, however, repetitive, and if you're about to say, but Bash repeats the minigames too, well, at least Bash changes up the music, the challenge conditions, some of the fundamental rules. It even had the decency to improve the horrid tank minigame, eventually. In the case of Fusion, however, a repeat minigame simply means a repeat minigame. A lack of checkpoints can be a bother, but the levels are never so long that it's too much of a bother. The best part of Fusion for me were the bonus rounds. They're functionally identical to classic Crash rounds. I especially like the free-falling ones. There's enough Wumpa to steer you in the right direction to the next crate, but not so much that it isn't satisfying. No, I'd say the biggest fault of this game is how it slips up the actual crossover aspect. It's one thing to say that Crash is dumb. I don't agree with it, but it's one thing to say it. But Coco and Spyro too? Everyone getting fooled by these minions with masks on their face is one stupid way to bring our heroes together. And you've surely heard about them throwing Molotovs at each other. There's not much I can say here that hasn't already been said. There are collectible cards for both franchises if you're going for 100%, but some are locked behind linking to a copy of Spyro Orange, and they're far from worth the effort. I could make better card art, and I draw like a toddler. Some of the minigames lock cards behind them, which makes me question their value. Crunch has some cards locked behind his mashing games, which again get repeated a lot. Crash is in eternal pain for the sake of a piece of cardboard. The sum of the parts for Fusion don't make for a wonderful game overall, but they do make a game that gets more of a bad reputation than it deserves. Unlike Spyro Orange, look into his purple eyes and tell him straight that he's a disappointment. Moving into joint 19th place now, somehow both of these games got 5 votes each. The first being the more recent of the two, Crash on the Run. From the developers of Candy Crush Saga came a monetized endless runner that didn't even last a year before it was taken down, so well done. It was probably this cursed crunch skin that scared everyone off actually. Extra special thanks to Tap Gameplay for the footage here. I would have tried to capture some myself, but, impossible. I tried to get into this game myself back in the day, and at first it seemed quite cool. Crash is well at home in corridor games where you hold forwards, and the game drew inspiration from some strong locales in the trilogy, a vast majority originating from Crash 2 for some reason. It was well animated, had smooth controls, and despite not using songs from the games it borrows from, it boasted a unique and bouncy soundtrack. Sadly, it fell into the trap we should be all too familiar with mobile games. You needed to collect specific parts and tools to move the game along. These required grinding, and more grinding. And when you weren't grinding, you were waiting for Coco's slow-ass machines to build your tools. Of course, none of that mattered if you were Mr. Muck Rich, but then you probably had more money than sense, like Viscount. On the Run is a good idea for the series, and not the worst debut for Crash on modern mobiles, but was unfortunately let down by money grubbing. And that won't even be the last time we hear of such a thing killing off a Crash game, I'm afraid. But before we get to that topic, we have the other joint 19th place game. I'm going to sound quite vocal about both of the next two entries because I can't believe they ended up so low, starting with Crash Bandicoot XS, also known as The Huge Adventure. Again, maybe the lack of access to Game Boy Advance games contributed to this. Maybe the natural screen crunch of the console affected things. Maybe it's because it's one of the easier games in the series. I accept all of these criticisms and more. However, it doesn't change the fact that The Huge Adventure achieved what very few games at the time could pull off, taking an accomplished 3D console adventure and successfully adapting it for handhelds. You need only look at other examples of the day, like Pac-Man World, to see how much better thought out The Huge Adventure really is. Critics at the time were keen to jump on how it played things safe by not distancing itself very far from the original trilogy. But in the modern age with, Crash 4 in it, this game has only aged all the better. It feels like a best-of compilation for Crash up until that point, going so far as to include non-platforming sections like underwater diving, riding polo in the chase level, and flying the jetpack, which was reimagined into a very pretty on-rail shooter. Those clouds are so fluffy. It has the charm of a modern-day D-make, and is all the more impressive for being one of the earliest Game Boy Advance games. Though I remember it wasn't very easy to see what was going on with my crusty original Game Boy Advance, rather than an SP. It has its strengths, such as how well it uses its powers, and its weaknesses, like lots of gotcha moments hidden off the screen. It's a good game overall, but no doubt that as good as it was, there was room for improvement. Which comfortably leads me on to the joint 17th place entries, both jumping up to 11 votes. The Huge Adventure is a great game and all, but what we have here is what I strongly believe to be the best Crash game post-Naughty Dog era. Actually, I personally might even prefer this to Warped. Yes, really. Yet somehow, Crash 2 Entranced ended up at the bottom half of this list. I mean, how? What? When? Why? Look, I know many people these days don't even know this game even exists, but for those who do, I'd love to hear why this game didn't cross your mind. Improving literally everything about the Huge Adventure, Entranced was a game that dared to freshen up the Crash formula. For starters, Dr. Cortex, he of Shrinking Planets fame, is nowhere to be seen. Long before Crash 4 did the same thing, Entranced risked putting Dr. Entropy in the shoes of the main villain, along with new antagonist, Dr. Entrance, master of hypnotism and the world's #1 fan of King K. Rool. Level themes felt familiar, but fresh, mostly due to the music being a blend of creative remixes of classic tunes and earworms of the most welcome quality. For the Game Boy Advance, a console not at all known for audio quality, that's a great achievement. The structure of the levels blends together the map screen of Crash 1 with the choice-driven nature of Crash 2 and 3's warp rooms. Coco and Crunch get to join in the action, taking over for Crash in some of the vehicle-based levels. I won't have a bad word spoken against Coco's space chase levels, they're stylish as heck. Meanwhile, Crunch gets to roll around in the atmosphere from Wrath of Cortex, but because of the ability to slow down and speed up the ball at the press of a button, it controls just as well, if not better, than its console inspiration. Crunch looks a little, strange, but that's okay. Crash gets to go on this wakeboard too. I remember showing off how pretty the water effects were to my friends when I was a wee thing. And that's not even all. For the first time since Crash Warped, Crash Entrance introduced new unlockable powers. What do you mean I'm forgetting something? The game gives Crash the double jump and super body slam from the start, the former of which assists greatly with the screen crunch troubles. It's seriously a godsend. But it also leaves room for 2 new powers. Crash can now slide a long distance at very high speed, or slow his momentum down for a super jump. Both are used to great extent, particularly in the bonus rounds, but I love the super slide the most. It's like a riskier version of the Crash Dash Sprint, rewarding players who memorize the levels with an even faster movement option. It opens up time trials much earlier than ever before too. But if you don't know what you're doing, you'll constantly slide into explosives, crocodiles, and explosive crocodiles. But my favourite addition to close this defense out are the gem shards. Instead of finding the usual coloured gems in tricky places, there are 4 shards of each coloured gem hidden in multiple levels. They're not cryptically hidden, but they're equally not easy to reach. Collecting all 4 shards unlocks a secret level, within which a fully formed coloured gem awaits at the end, which all combine together to unlock the final boss. This is a wonderful idea that makes the coloured gems feel more valuable than the clear ones. True, the boss that they lead to isn't very good, the one major blemish on this game, but it's the journey that's the most fun here, not the destination. How fitting for a game you can carry in your pocket. I don't care how they do it, someone needs to bring the Crash Game Boy Advance games to modern platforms. Bring Fusion with them if we must, one must suffer for the sake of art. That one took longer than I expected. Let's get a move on then to the game that's killed the Crash franchise, a phrase that gets tossed around more often than Mario on our Delfino. The other game in 17th place, and the last tied vote on our list, is Crash Mind Over Mutant. Now, as we'll go into later, I'm not at all a fan of Crash the Titans. There are few games in the series I would say are outright bad, but that game is unfortunately one of them. which makes Mutant interesting because despite being fundamentally similar, I have more precious memories of playing this game on co-op with my best friend. I think the prime thing that helps this game is the improved humor. From how different every cutscene's art style is, to the splendid vocal performances all around, to character-defining jokes. Brio in particular steals the show.
Greetings, little penis.
With his endless claims that he invented everything, from the concept of recycling to the Bible.
I created Slinkies! Stop playing with them because they're mine!
Recite that line to any Crash fan, and they'll probably know exactly what you're talking about immediately.
But Dr. Cortex, who says he invented many things...
Liar!
That's not to say every part of the script lands. Take Uka Uka. I know he's not been so threatening since his debut on the PS1, but they actually strapped him to a milking machine. I don't even want to know what was going on in the mind of whoever wrote that.
Felt like I married my mother. Not that I've thought about that.
Or that. And on a gameplay level, the beat-em-up stuff remains quite monotonous, not the least of which reasons being that you have to repeat quite a few levels. The game goes for an open-ended world approach, which means a lot of backtracking. Mostly. Oh, that's Vor. Sometimes the game teleports you to the next place you need to go, which is strange. Can't they do that all the time? There's a new combo system, which I appreciate. Your combo now lasts indefinitely until you either hit or fall off the level, making the new counter-attack system all the more worth understanding if you're going for 100% completion. Crash and the Titans themselves can also level up independently. But I think this game's biggest saving grace is that they upped the platforming angle. I didn't mind going over places like these old ruins again, because jumping around the tilting platforms is actually pretty fun. Crash is slower in his typical movement than before, but in turn this makes his platforming much less slippery than the other Radical games. In Titans, he had this aerial spin that made him fall slower and made the platforming non-existent. I much prefer the Mutant's take, where he'll hover for a short moment before diving down at high speed, a satisfying combat move and platforming mechanic in one. In general, the game feels more confident about making use of Crash's moveset without the Mutants. Some of the Mutants return from Titans and maintain their focus on combat, but others, in particular the new Mutants you take control of, have better designs and stand out from each other more than before. Some can freeze bodies of water and surf in the shallows, some can use telekinesis to move objects, and some can squash themselves down to dodge attacks instead of blocking them and squeeze through small spaces. This one has a strangely familiar dive attack. The Rhino Roller Mutant is the highlight of the game, reaching ludicrous speeds and benefiting from racetrack level designs and wide open spaces. I always had one in my highly useful held stock when given the chance. That's not to say that the combat, reduced as it may be, is still very much above shallow, mind you. But even if things were all around worse than Titans, I would have pushed through, purely for the cutscenes. While things like Mr. T Crunch aren't good as a central concept, Mutant's crazy humor knew how to make the best of them. And with that, we have no further ties on this list, so let's move on to 16th place with 12 votes, and oh man, now I have to talk about Titans. I did my best to be positive about Mutants, but man oh man, Titans, what am I gonna do with you? Besides jettison you into the gullet of the nearest man-trap plant, but then I'd worry about making the poor thing unwell.
Poison!
Now, the major positive I will give this game is that like Tag Team Racing, Radical managed to get Titans onto the PlayStation Portable with perfect controls and no missing features. For its day, that was impressive. I love how the PSP managed to make handheld versions of the game so one-to-one with their console versions. Fond memories of Outrun 2006. This is paradise and it's very nice. Actually, a big point in Titan's favour as well is that this port runs a lot smoother than the Mutants port, probably because there was less to work around. The landscapes are very pretty too. I especially remember the beachfront at night on your way to Dr. Engine, as he yells obscene things at you down the speakers.
I'll ruin you like I ruined my prom!
Oh no, Lenore, we don't deserve you. And neither does Crash Titans, for that matter. Let's begin my attack on Titan, eh? The very opening moments of the game sum up everything wrong with Crash in that era. Such juvenile humour. Well, except for the line about Cortex not hearing anyone from up on his big balloon thing. That was clever. If the gameplay was any better, I'd just skip the cutscenes and mute the dialogue and call it a day. but any praise that I had for Mind Over Mutant is missing in action. Platforming is minimal at best, pedantic at worst. Combat is so basic, you could do it with your eyes closed, and the titans that you take control of are very rarely distinct. This one might run a little faster, and that one lobs projectiles. Yay, I hit the target and the platform fell. 11 out of 10, better than Ocarina of Time. Structurally and visually, they just aren't memorable, and for some unfathomable reason, they can't jump. The game creates moments where you are forced to leave the titans behind and proceed on foot, only to throw more titans at you 15 seconds later, making them feel less of a feeling of power, more an assault course of boredom. It doesn't help that the landscapes you fight in are often too large and empty, probably to compensate for the PSP, a trap that Mutant falls into too, but to a lesser degree. You get these moments where you surf on Aku Aku's face, but they're just as empty as the rest of the world. You can't even spin attack at the start of the game. Who locks Crash's most iconic move away? Never mind the fact that it makes you dizzy far too quickly. There are side objectives as the levels go on, all with a focus on equally basic combat, compared to Mutant, which challenges you to navigate environments expertly, as well as these spy cameras, which are about as well hidden as my Plimovian accent. But I think the worst crime this game commits is what it does to the characters. Not only are they unfunny, they can be downright controversial. Poor Tiny Tiger, if you think Mr. T Crunch is a problem, then listen to this.
Crash, I really am cross with you. I'm just trying to do my job, and you go and cause all this chaos. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to eat your face.
I will fully admit that I quite like how Tiny looks visually. The army getup is an interesting direction to take him, but otherwise, no, that's not our Tiny. And this isn't our Cortex.
Very stimulating.
And Nina, oh Nina, this was her chance to be the primary antagonist. And to be fair, she kills it with the giant spider bot. But lines like this make me question the morals of humanity.
This is my body and my right to choose!
But still, this was a community vote, and Titans did manage to outpace 11 games, including Entranced. People were keen to say in their comments that it was a fun childhood memory too, so clearly I'm missing something big here that you can see. Fair's fair. You're welcome to take to the comments and shut me up, make me eat my own words, and maybe some pancakes, those would be nice, thank you very much.
Pancakes!
In 15th place, jumping up a bit to 16 votes, we have Crash Nitro Kart on the home consoles, a much better performance than its handheld cousin. My opinion of this game seems to change every time I think of it, and even people leaving comments thought the same. As correctly noted by one, Nitro Kart is Crash Team Racing but worse, but only because the bar was so high before. I'm not the biggest fan of how much slower paced the game is, nor how stiff power sliding initially feels, regardless of the character you're playing as. But I appreciate that the game acknowledged power slides are made to be spammed, and that it actively encourages you to make huge boost combos. Aku Aku even has a hint encouraging you to keep them up for the entire race.
Oh my goodness!
It's necessary too, because this game can't seem to make up its mind about difficulty. The big boss, Emperor Velo, was much more of a roadblock for young me than Oxide ever was, and even modern me took quite a few tries to beat him. Did you know that there's a semi-bad ending to the game if you can't beat Velo and decide to give up?
That was a joke. Perhaps next time you might actually challenge me.
The weakest link of this game has got to be the sound design. You can barely hear either the music or the sound effects, both of which lack any of the punch CTR had. The tracks themselves are a mix of very ambitious and simpler than simple. Everyone always cites this game as the inspiration behind Mario Kart 8, but in truth, the anti-gravity can have a mind of its own, sort of like F-Zero GX, and it isn't used nearly as often as you may remember. Still, one of my biggest gripes of its younger brother Nitro Fueled was how bare bones the Nitro Kart tracks were. Going back to Nitro Kart itself, they have some odd colour schemes, but they were a lot more populated, animated, and full of life. The extra obstacles, anti-gravity, and occasional weather effects make a big difference, particularly for Out of Time, Thunderstruck, and Hyper Spaceway. The new team-up mechanic in Adventure Mode is novel too. It's rare, but you can get away with a second place finish if your teammate makes it on your part. Although the item span that results from this mechanic can be a bit cheap. So far so 7 out of 10. But the big feather in Nitro Kart's cap by far is the characterization. At the time of making this video, an interview appeared online saying that Nitro Kart was intended to be the final Crash game, so Vivendi clearly decided to go for broke. This was the last Crash game to take a more serious tone, with the threat of the Earth's destruction at stake, and it understands the characters perfectly for the most part, not the least of which reasons being the original writers from the PS1 trilogy made this game their swan song. Crash is not a dumb, gibbering fool. He's pumped for action to stop Cortex when they meet, and tries to befriend his enemies when he can, to the point of giving up his beloved yo-yo for one of them. Coco is perfectly fine in the cutscenes, but completely odd in the races.
No peeking yet! Suxar!
Who even says that? But Crunch, oh yeah, that's the Crunch. He's spot on, jumping from a fun lover as much as his newfound Bandicoot siblings,
Coming at you, baby!
to deathly serious and intimidating.
Come on, it's pain time.
It doesn't help in the PAL version of this game, his racer icon is giving us a look that could melt the butter in your fridge 3 rooms away from the TV. Tiny is an adorable baby, Engine lends Cortex good aid, Cortex has a one-track mind on conquering the Earth, and Oxide is eager for revenge, despite being a dreadful driver. It's a little odd to see Entranced here before his true debut, and he did something unspeakable to Dingo Doll, but they can't all be winners. Which sums up Nitro Kart overall, really. It has its blemishes and odd spots, but it also tries its darn well best to capture the spirit of Crash Team Racing's gameplay and the Crash Bandicoot series as a whole, while bringing new things to the table. Oh, and the legendary loading screens, I mustn't forget to mention those.
Stop! Stop! He's already dead!
And we aren't done with racing games quite yet. In 14th place with just one more vote at 17 picks, we've got Crash Tag Team Racing. I have a very love-hate relationship with this game, one that the voters shared. Here's a few quotes from them. Yes, it's easy and short, but it's so relaxing and I love the flow and uniqueness of the game. The hub world is amazing and it's got Von Clutch bowling. Crash Tag Team Racing had a golden opportunity for Ripperoo Rippins and they missed it. But at least they made up for it with Ebenezer Von Clutch.
It's so lovely. I would make it my life if I could.
Well, you aren't wrong about Von Clutch, but also what? Anyway, I completely agree about the hub world. Controlling Crash is a joy. That double jump never gets anything less than satisfying. And his new ledge grab felt oddly revolutionary for the series. We Crash fans could see a dust bunny cross the screen and praise attention to the graphical detail. It's another game that felt bolstered by being available on the PSP. The short length and easy difficulty didn't really matter to me at a time where I could take the complete experience of me on a long plane trip towards a summer holiday. Even the long loading times apparent in all versions of the games weren't a bother, and we all know precisely why. Looking back, the game does have its vices. In races, Engine is ridiculously busted, blowing everything up effortlessly.
Enjoy your screaming doom!
And as we should all know, abandoning your Clash teammate at the last moment is the lowest move a human being can make in a video game medium. Meanwhile in the overworld, the chicken collecting minigame was a bit of a slog. Why were they T-posing? And the bizarre collectible death animations were crunchy. But let's not forget this was Crash's second attempt at open world platforming, and for my money, I had a lot more fun exploring Motor World than Twinsanity's locals, purely because the act of moving Crash was such a joy. Which I'm sure won't earn my video hundreds of dislikes more. Please put the pitchforks down. Sometimes it could be a bit confusing knowing where to go next, but the game has such chill vibes that I didn't really mind. There's a neat feature that exploring the overworld unlocks shortcuts for certain tracks, a nice way to connect the features together. If you can't tell, I'm kinda grasping here. There's not really much else I can say here, to be honest. It's a flawed but fun game with a lot of personality.
Take that, you freak!
It has a bop of the soundtrack and well-meaning ambition, but it's very short, not to mention questionable in places. I think it made just the right spot on this list, so good on you guys. Can I have some of that common sense, please? As myself and Crash will demonstrate, it isn't as common as you might think. Kinda like much of the player base in this next game. A jump in votes later, and we have 13th place, unlucky for some, but not for Crash Team Rumble, which managed to escape the bottom half of the rankings to my eternal delight, with 23 votes. With just a handful more, it could have done even better. And let me start by saying, I really do think it should have placed higher. For my discussion, I'd rather get them negatives out of the way first, because I know you guys are considering garroting me for standing up for this game. I feel the murderous intent through your phone screens. First off, yes, of course the game would have been a better fit for free-to-play. Thankfully, the Battle Pass included was generous, cheap, and if you completed one, the rest of them were free. The game itself sold for budget price too. I'm not at all justifying any of this as a reason to include microtransactions. I'm just saying they weren't nearly as bad as other games of the day that got a free pass from society. The other problem is the netcode. Ping troubles are quite prevalent in this game, about as bad as nitro-fueled online, spontaneously hitting you with stuff that wasn't visibly there. But the one criticism I want you guys to shut up about right this second is, oh boo-hoo, this game isn't Crash Bash. You're damn right it isn't Crash Bash, nor does it need to be. This was, by their own confession, a passion project for Toys for Bob. Taking the classic movesets of the Crash crew from It's About Time, adapting them for combat, and adding new moves on top of them. All of the characters are easy to pick up, but hard to master, the base makings of any good Crash Bandicoot game. Crash has this neat new air slide move, and Spyro a spy roll, both of which I hope become series mainstays. For characters who don't have existing movesets, Toys for Bob graced them with creative and fun powers. A big shout out to Allura especially. Her new wind powers, acrobatics, and healing suit her perfectly. And lest we forget, the best bouncy boy, Ripperoo, simultaneously adorable while breaking the physics of the game for your amusement. Like a kangaroo version of Jeff the Landshark, who likes bombs. For those unfamiliar with this game, Rumble is a competitive collectathon with light MMO features, though Toys for Bob have always insisted it's not an MMO. There are three kinds of characters. The scorers, who smash crates and collect Wumper, trying to help the team bank 2,000 pieces to win the game, by smashing through enemy defenses. The blockers, who act as the goalkeepers. The slower ones use their bulky bodies and wide moves to try and stop the scoring efforts of enemies, while the faster ones go after enemies that try to make a break for it. My big chunky boy Dingo Doll is one of the former kinds of blocker. Good luck getting past this wobbly wall. You'll be too distracted to score. Sorry, what were we talking about? Oh, right, classes. Lastly, we have the boosters, who support the other roles in combat while capturing the gem platforms. Each cluster captured lets your team temporarily score more Wumper than they can usually hold. They also collect these sapphire relics, with which to activate special stage-dependent powers to give the team an edge, one of which is the Epic power-up. Some of these summon guest characters like Uka Uka or Gulp from Spyro 2. There's quite simply nothing else like Crash Team Rumble. It adapts the Crash platforming formula into multiplayer chaos perfectly. I recommend squadding up if you plan to take the plunge. Watch out for those level 500 stacks who prey on the weak, they know who they are. And if none of that strikes your fancy, Rumble boasts a cooperative party mode. Whereas the main game tests your platforming prowess against enemies, party mode sees you all work together to complete objectives. Say, a race around obstacle courses, helping Dingo feed his hungry customers, and so on. All capped off with optional boss battles, if you feel confident enough or need the experience points. Besides Entranced, Rumble is the most underrated game in the Crash Bandicoot franchise, taken too soon, and I will die on that hill as often as my Dingo Doll dies in-game. Please leave me alone, I have dreams to open a restaurant in an airport.
Here now! What's all this? Off you go!
As we move into the 12th place entry, which has 24 votes by the way, we'll begin to look at the Insane trilogy. Originally, I was going to lump the whole trilogy together, but by popular demand I decided to separate them. I was worried people would simply vote for both the original and Insane version of a game together with their votes, but it turns out it was far from what happened, as proven by Insane's version of Crash Bandicoot Warped. It's strange to jump into discussing Insane with the last game, and yet I get what it's doing in Dead Last. It's the vehicles, isn't it? Be it the bike, jet ski, or our purring pal Pura, none of them control like they used to. When we get a remake that prides itself of being like you remember it, we expect it to be as one-to-one with the originals as possible. Not only are the trilogy games much slower paced, they have a strange art style, odd physics, and tweak the feeling of controlling Crash and his many machines too much. They all feel like there's a delay to their turn-in. It doesn't diminish too much from what makes Warped so strong a game, but it is very noticeable when you know the original inside out. In this game's defense though, they treat the boss characters very well. I always love this eye roll from Tropy when talking about his supposed superior. He's such a dick. And Tiny Tiger has never looked better. I'll close this part out by addressing the most unexpected comment on my list. I like when the lions swallow Crash. You know what? Props for the honesty. Have some trivia. Did you know that in the Switch version of Insane, they forgot to add a texture to the lions for that death animation? It's true, it's just a black sphere. A dark void, that's what these bottomless pits of big cats are. Moving straight on into another Insane edition of the game, this time it's Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back, which secured 25 votes, one for every crystal. Fundamentally, there's not too much to talk about here, so I'll keep this briefer than the others coming up. But if there's any entry in the Insane trilogy where I noticed the decrease in pace and speed, it's right here. It isn't just because they removed some old glitches like the slide spin. Crash naturally runs a little slower and he has less active bouncy animation. Here's a side-by-side comparison so you can see what I'm talking about. It bothers me because I love how deceptively fast-paced the OG trilogy is. Did you know that in the Japanese version of Crash 2, Crash moves so slow that if you don't actively slide jump away from the chasing boulders, they're guaranteed to catch you? It makes me wonder if the Insane version chose to match the speed of the Japanese versions of the game, but probably not, don't mind me. A little credit when it's due, however, the vehicle controls in this game are better all around than in Warped's remake. The wakeboard feels pretty darn close to its original state, and I love the jetpack as much as I ever have and ever will. Prepare your angry comments accordingly because I'm coming back to this point later. Just a single vote separates the last entry from the top 10, which we will begin with a frankly legendary title, and not always for the right reasons.
Crash Bash!
Haha, yes, and the song and dance in my comments was always the same for this one. Bash deserves a remake. Remake Crash Bash. According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way that a bee should be able to— Wait, no, hold on, ignore that one.
You like jazz?
To this day, even among the party game genre, there's still nothing quite like Crash Bash. I'm happy to be among this game's defenders, so let's try and sum up why this game was one of my favorite Christmas presents that me ever received. For starters, it's got so much intense atmosphere that it goes off the charts. Fortunately, I have a bigger chart. You'd never normally associate party games with the fate of the world, but even out of Naughty Dog's hands, Bash was still smack in the middle of Crash's more take-me-seriously era. How many other party games can you think of where the villain gains supreme power and destroys everything if you screw up? That's not to say the game can't be silly, defying gravity to save yourself from the icy depths, playing four-way Pong suspended in midair, holding your breath for longer than Guybrush Threepwood, all for the sake of a bumper car like Race, or waking up the penguin equivalent of me. You even get to bounce around with Ripperoo on pogo sticks, the old guy showing the young'uns how it's done. Fun fact, this minigame encouraged young me to ask for a pogo stick on one of my birthdays. I was a little disappointed it didn't bounce like the ones in the game. Maybe I should have attached springs to my legs instead. Critics complain that the minigames are too identical to one another, and back to back I can understand why they say that. But in adventure mode, they all feel distinct and are drip-fed slowly enough that it never bothered me. And even if it was a bother, the gems and crystal challenges add a lot to them.
You motherfucker.
I love how each crystal challenge transforms the arena. It's just too bad that we couldn't unlock these outside the adventure. We all know how much fun Space Basher's crystal would be with friends. The graphics are an odd one. The landscapes are as good as they get for Crash on the PS1, but the character models look static. The ever-famous Kadikarus once called Rillaroo Gorilla Monkey Anus Face, and I'm inclined to agree. Not even Nitro Fuel could save this one.
Ugly! Ugly! Ugly!
The music plays a similar approach to the Game Boy Advance games, blending new tunes with remixes of old ones. The entire soundtrack is a bop. I can't think of any songs I wouldn't want to listen to, besides perhaps the later medieval music. But my favourite part of the experience far and away is the co-op adventure mode. This was one of the first video games I ever fully completed 100% without cheats, thanks to the helpful efforts of my older sister. As Crash and Coco, we somehow beat everything, an effort I'm pretty sure that modern me can't do. Co-op changes the game for the better in every aspect. The frustrating becomes the manageable, the slow becomes the fast, the gem and crystal challenges are unique to team-based play, and I even found the tank minigames actually tolerable. I hate these minigames so much. Slow-ass controls, mind-reading AI, and Tiny's too buff for his own tank. If we ever see a modern take on Crash Bash, co-op is essential. I promise you, your views on this game, whatever they may be, will change completely if you take it on with a friend. That was a long ramble, wasn't it? Let's go into something shorter as we move on to 9th place with 29 votes. This is where we say goodbye to the Insane trilogy and its take on the original Crash Bandicoot. A reminder, very few people voted for both the original and Insane versions of a game. Some of you cited how Insane flubbed up the physics, and that it was particularly noticeable in the first game. I'm inclined to agree to the point that it's the first thing I think of when discussing this game, which is rather unfortunate. One person commented on how the mood of the game is too far removed from the original, specifically citing the temple levels. Yeah, they're not at all eerie this time, I agree. It's the kind of vibes only the limitations of the PS1 could have provided, whether that was accidental or intentional. Actually, there were only 3 of you who voted for both versions of Crash 1, and one of you did so with a comment saying, which I can only guess was a reaction to what this remake did do correctly. Any Crash fan worth their salt knows that it's not easy going for 100% in the OG game. And the single biggest reason for this is that you can't die even once if you want to secure a box or colored gem. Wisely, the Insane Trilogy version decided to restrict this challenge to the colored gems only. Good thing too, because that famous pill-shaped hitbox will see you die a lot more than the original. I firmly believe that despite the efforts to make things easier, the Insane version is harder than the original Crash 1, but not always by intended design. Partly because of the addition of the time trial relics, which make you rethink what you're familiar with, and partly the physics. I know I keep bringing those up, but I'm sorry, they truly suck. Let's get out of here before I dig my own grave far enough to reach Australia from the UK. With Insane gone, we only have one remake left on the list, and this is not one of them. In 8th place with 36 votes, we have an impressive showing from Crash Bandicoot, The Wrath of Cortex. This is a lot higher than I ever expected Wrath to place, given how everyone who brings it up in conversation wants to rake it over the hot coals. But no, people were happy to support it or give it honorable mentions. Someone among you asked if you could vote multiple times for Wrath. I'm sorry, I know Crunch is good, but he's not that good. Not too long ago, at the time of this video, I replayed Wrath for the first time since having a GameCube in my childhood. As a point of fact, this game was one of the 2 reasons I bought a GameCube, along with Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. It was the first console I was able to purchase for myself. Over time, I've let the mass negative opinions of the world cloud my judgment of this game. And if you didn't hate me before, you're gonna hate me for this. This game is better than Crash 4. There, I said it, and it felt good too. Going back to a game where the box counts were fair was like a breath of fresh air. 100% in a Crash game is very important to me, and I'd fully complete Wrath over many other games. Now, I'm not going to say that Wrath is perfect. It has Traveler's Tale's signature of meh in places, from the weird death animations to design decisions like the mech suit from the box art being just as vulnerable as Crash. And yes, there are a lot of vehicle levels, but there are only 3 I actively didn't look forward to. The Jeep driving on the permanent oil slick, the Dragonfly aircraft and its slow and awkward lock-on, and especially the underwater sub. But what about the latter? When I was young, I got stuck on levels like H2O No, swearing that obstacles appeared from off-screen, and it was too hard to maneuver around the enemies. Nah, I just needed to get good. They're perfectly visible, and the craft has the same control scheme as the jetpack from Crash 2. I aced those levels first try on my return trip. It goes to show that nostalgia can blind us for better and for worse. On a presentation level, the game is similar to Bash. graphically odd but not without merit, musically ingenious and underappreciated, but the vibes as good as it gets. Traveler's Tales definitely got this right to the letter. Sure, the animation of the cutscenes may be a bit off-putting, but the characters are all perfectly understood. Well, maybe not Uka Uka, but you can't win them all.
Nincompoops! Nincompoops!
The villains are dead set on killing Crash this time around, armed with the new elemental masks.
I always wanted to be a fireman! Until I discovered they put out fires.
This game was made in a time when celebrity voice actors were often out of nowhere. Think Scott Menville as Lloyd Irvin in Tales of Symphonia, he of Teen Titans fame. In Rap's case, that means the likes of Ronald Lee Emery as Wawa or Mark Hamill as Pyro the Fire Elemental, and of course, Kevin Michael Richardson as the Crunch. What a dream casting! Crunch sends shivers down your spine with every line, and more than proves his threatening nature as he becomes the focus of every boss battle in the game. And yet, when you 100% the game and he joins the Bandicoot family, you also get the sense of him being a gentle giant. You can agree or disagree with all I've had to say about Rap as much as you want to, but I'm sure we can all agree that whatever the future holds for Crash Bandicoot, Crunch needs to be a part of it, no question. Oh, and the Elementals too, it'd be nice if they came along for the ride.
What are you looking at, head?
It's too bad then that the next game on our humble list relegated him to fridge magnets. We have an enormous jump in votes here to 62, wow! In 7th place is Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, the latest in the mainline series of Crash platformers. I swear the opinions I hear about this game change by the minute, but mine are very set in stone. So I'm going to get my more negative point of view out of the way before we move on to why the community loves this game. A Crash Bandicoot platformer should not feel like a chore to 100% complete. Forget the notion of ridiculously hidden boxes, how much longer and harder the game's levels are compared to prior and such like. The fact of the matter is that these levels contain hundreds upon hundreds of boxes, and you'll need to redo the levels multiple times, some more than others. To me, the satisfaction of a Crash game is mastering it so you can secure everything in one quick blitz, maybe two with the shorter levels of yesteryear. I cannot, on good conscience, say that I enjoy this game as much as others, because a Crash platformer that isn't at least a little fun to 100% complete is like being unable to scratch the fleas in your fur. Crash 4 is one of those games in my eyes that gets most everything right, except the gameplay. Think Ni no Kuni. It looks great, it sounds great, it has a great world and characters, but the actual act of playing it is like pulling teeth from Tiny. But enough about my personal negativity. There are plenty of people who do love this game, and I get why. For starters, it controls like a dream, perhaps discounting the triple spin speed boost. Every character is responsive, athletic, and rewarding to play as. Every character, he says. Did I forget to mention, this game has a chunk? I have never seen my opinion of a character in fictional media turn around quite so quickly as with Dingo Doll. I barely even noticed him before Crash 4. In fact, because of Crash Bash, he annoyed me. But suddenly, he's an enormous, huggable good guy, and I couldn't be happier for him.
Am I a franchise? Could I open a restaurant? In an airport?
Everyone seems to love the redesigned Torna too. Unrecognizable in looks perhaps, but still retaining her dominant vibes. Cortex is a little finicky to control, but a fresh approach to Crash platforming nonetheless. And they all get to navigate colourful, detailed worlds with superb animation and, well, I can't say this is my favourite soundtrack, but it's certainly got its high points, mostly whenever we get a remix of Cortex's theme involved. I'd say this game's biggest strength, though, is that it harks back to what made Crash so lovable in the PS1 days. He's not a total idiot. He can be silly, but he's back to his old heroic self. And that alone gives me high hopes for whatever may come next in the series. To sum up, as well put by one of the voters in their comments, Crash 4 is the best game in the series when you're not going for 100%. For some, that might be off-putting. For others, the very premise may have granted them a Crash game bigger than the whole original trilogy combined, and you can't argue with that kind of bang for your buck. Even when his games have faults, Crash's games still have a magic about them that keeps us all invested regardless. In 6th place, with just 1 vote between it and Crash 4's ranking, that's 63 votes by the way, we have Crash Twinsanity. Another game where I just don't know what the general public thinks of it. Some scream for the remake to end all remakes. And others, such as my local official PlayStation magazine back in the day, scored it 30%, with the caption simply saying, "Why don't you die?" Yeah, those guys were not Crash fans, but we are, so let's talk about why this game has a legacy. By legacy, I mean an evil scientist, what you expect. Twinsanity was the debut of Lex Lang as Dr. Neo Cortex, and dare I say, it's his finest performance to this day. He steals the show in every scene he appears in. If anything, Twinsanity is his game, not Crash's. He's insanely quotable in almost every scene he's in, from lines such as, "I've ruined the lives of so many, I can't be expected to remember them all," to, "I've organized a little gathering, like a birthday party, except the exact opposite," to, "I'm okay, the spikes broke my fall," to,
Mother?
I could honestly fill this entire section with Cortex moments and have done, but we have a game to talk about too, so let's do that. It's no secret that Twinsanity was born of development hell. So many glitches and cut pieces of content and changes at the 11th hour. It's no wonder Cortex jokes about them running out of time. It's honestly a miracle the game emerged in a good state, rejigging the traditional Crash formula to blend open world platforming with classic linearity. When I say a good state, I mean a good vision for where to take Crash next. It's hard to overlook the many glitches of this game, but at least they only help to make the game more memorable. Traveler's Tales, you got lucky this time. I can remember my best friend discovering that you could throw Dr. Cortex in range of Ernest the Farmer here, and he would shoot Ernest ahead of his cutscene. Trigger the cutscene after, and Ernest doesn't say anything, he just lies on the floor, twitching. And for good measure, Cortex shoots him again. Controlling Crash feels a bit hit and miss. The double jump feels great, but slide jumping is unusually stiff. He simply won't stop smiling either. I fully confess I hate how this game was the first to turn Crash entirely brainless. Cortex should be in my bad books too for losing any intimidation factor he had before, but he's just so darn funny, I don't care. Nina gets her debut here too, and despite her very limited playtime, is probably the strongest part of the gameplay. The second strongest is Dingodar's boss battle. It's too bad they couldn't all be as good as his. Most of them revolve around running sideways until you can hit the boss, but Dingodar is a genuine challenge. I loved every part of his battle. Oh, and the third strongest part of the game is sending Cortex to the sun. Don't let those dulcet tones distract you from the soundtrack. I would devote more time to praise Spiral Mouth for their one-of-a-kind music, but they resorted to AI for their album, Icky Icky Icky. All of this to say is that for a game more rushed than your average Sonic the Hedgehog game, Twinsanity's ambition, presentation, and hilarity managed to leave a lasting impact on the community as a whole. I agree with the voters, a remake that gives this game the justice it deserves would go a long way. This is where the top 5 begins. Thanks for sticking with me so far. If you're just jumping ahead in the video to see the top 5, well, hello there. Much of this probably consists of what you expected to do well, but what may surprise you is the order of rankings. You probably think that the whole OG trilogy is in the top 3, right? But no, it isn't. At number 5 with 64 votes is the original Crash Bandicoot. We all know what this game is doing as the lowest rank of the main trio, those gosh darn gems. One slip up and you're taking a brief look at the map screen before starting over from scratch. The save system is odd too. I could forgive the whole bonus round saving your progress thing if the game actually saved at the level that you were on. Save and quit at the Great Gate, for example, and you'll have to go back and do jungle rollers again. Arbitrary, but in the days where passwords were all you could trust, understandable. I can still memorize the super password when I can't even remember my own birthday. I probably blocked out my birthday on purpose because I'm old. Here's where my negatives of the game end though, because to this day, Crash 1 is the most unique entry in the franchise in that it feels like a large-scale journey. You truly do feel like you're navigating the Wumpa Islands, watching the next location inch closer in the background. I love all the level themes in this game, but I especially love how they transition from lush and green to toxic and grimy to the dangerous places that Cortex hasn't bothered building over. There's a true adventurous mood to this game of beating the odds, storming dark temples of traps and beasties, navigating the dark corridors of a forgotten castle wing, braving this face staring into your very soul. I know you enjoy playing Sonic games. Lots of people cite this game as too difficult in general, but I'll let you in on a secret. That's just the Insane Trilogy, Jading Opinions. A vast majority of platforming in this game can be accomplished by holding forwards and jumping the maximum distance. That makes levels like Lights Out and Road to Nowhere strangely athletic when you know your physics are consistent and your hitbox isn't left up to fate. Crash's moveset in this game is as simple as jumping and spinning and occasionally hijacking local pigs for no other reason than to pull this legendary face. And yet it somehow manages to all be satisfying. A part of this is due to how exemplary the animation is. There's so much extra detail. Watch how Crash steadies himself after a spin, for example. And it's all wrapped up with a musical bow. The soundtrack never misses, being a mix of chipper and cheerful for the bright and colourful jungles to eerie and mournful for the darkness of the unknown. If you want my honest opinion, and you might not like this, N-Sane's remake got 90% of this game's appeal wrong. The original will always be king in my mind, and it's not even close. I'll give you a hint for the next two entries. They're both racing games. You guessed it, that means it's time for a contest between Crash Team Racing and its nitro-fueled little bro. Who's going to take the trophy to become world champion? Take a moment to pause and guess. I can wait. I'll just go back to my tea and custard creams while you do. You back? Cool. In fourth place with a generous 76 votes, it's Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled. But don't feel too dejected if you're a fan, it was a close race. Despite technically being a remake, I consider both games very distinct from each other. Sure, they share tracks, but they feel different to control, the advanced mechanics differ, and let's not forget the wealth of DLC in that enormous roster. Unless your name is either Viscount or Mr. Crumb, everyone was fair game for a go-kart, even the lesser-known characters like Yaya Panda or Pasadena Opossum. Hasty also debuted here, and he's cool, deal with it. Compared to the original CTR, your kart feels much easier to slide around, and maintaining boosts is far more generous. Honestly, maybe it's too easy. I'm not fond of the tracks that promote the aptly named Blue Fire boost mechanics in their track design. Prehistoric Parkway, one of the DLC tracks, is a poor example of this. The turbo pad that supercharges your kart for the rest of the track is after the first batch of item crates. Better hope you don't get hit, or you'll have zero chance of catching up. And given how wobbly the online experience is, with items spontaneously appearing from thin air and no warnings as to incoming homing shots, it's not going to be pleasant. Actually, the DLC as a whole can be hit and miss. When it misses, we get Spyro Circuit with people leaving unavoidable traps behind the portals. When it hits, we get my favourite track in any racing game to this day, Drive Through Danger, a masterclass in track design. I might need to devote a dedicated video to this track down the line. The Crash Nitro Kart tracks return too, but they feel rather devoid of life, particularly when you compare them to the amazing presentation behind the original remade tracks. I love how they turned Slide Coliseum into a rave, or how Papu's Pyramid has some background man traps teaching the kids how to eat racers. Nitro Fueled has done many things that the original game does not, but it also gets things wrong that come from simply adding too much. I think my preferred way to play the game is in time trial mode. It's more than just trophy and oxide ghosts this time. I'm proud to say I managed to conquer all of the staff ghosts on the Switch version of the game. But I had to sell the Switch to keep the roof over my head, so screenshots are all I've got left. Being poor sucks. Luckily, I can still enjoy the PlayStation version, which, as one voter puts it, has a large number of fun tracks, characters, and customization, and is a game with fun mechanics and insane replayability value. Despite any faults that Nitro Fueled may or may not have, I'd still rather play it over Mario Kart World or Sonic Cross World. And surely that action speaks more volumes than my words alone can justify. You know what comes next. In the bronze position, with 78 votes, is Crash Team Racing. I'm very pleased to see the OG triumph here, because it truly is a magical piece of gaming history. Naughty Dog wanted to send Crash out in the most jump-the-shark way possible, and instead, they created an all-time great. Have you ever heard of the phrase blue sky game? It means a sunny game that just has a way of making you feel good even when you lose, and makes you feel even better when you master it. Crash Team Racing is kind of a blue sky game. Mostly, when you're not in a lab or a space station or an arena. Okay, maybe not. But it's still an endlessly rewarding game in that vein. And it's all thanks to the power slide system. Not only does gliding around the kart feel super smooth, like breaking out the butter, the sound effects make toast. Crunchy toast. Sound design goes a long way in CTR, with a satisfying punch to most of the sound effects, topped off with perfect voice acting. But so does the fact that this game is generally tougher than Nitro Fuel to master. Boost fire fizzles out from the back of your kart quickly. Shortcuts are more strict. The game doesn't have a dedicated option to teach you boost timings. In fact, the only thing Nitro Fuel does on a more challenging level would be the time trial Deb Ghosts. Once you get the hang of all these tricks, the CPU here really doesn't stand a chance, but that doesn't make it any less fun to trounce them. Lots of people do like to say, ew, adventure mode, it's just a rip-off of Diddy Kong Racing, while I'm here 100% in the game for like the 6th time saying, holy sh**, 2 cakes! At least until the Crystal Challenge is rolled around, and then it's a stale cake, with raisins. Yep, even this game, despite being in my top 5 of all time, isn't perfect. Regardless, I'm happy to say I enjoy the entire track list of this game. Sure, some are better than others. I'm always going to gravitate towards Hot Air Skyway, for example. But for both representing the franchise and for how fun the tracks are to burn up, they all hold a place in my nostalgia, every single one. It might not be the prettiest kart race on the PS1, look at this, it looks like someone froze up in the cold wind. But when it's so fundamentally fun to drive, who cares? Even the items are fun to handle. The tumble state you get knocked into feels less frustrating than being flipped to a crawl in Mario Kart, while the ability to juice up your items feels very Lego Racers, but more balanced. It's both a shame that the computer can't use items like warp orbs and clocks, and a godsend. Remember the early days of Nitro Fuel before the appearance rates of those items got patched? Brr. Speaking of, when it comes to comparing this to Nitro Fueled, I would say less is more, but it's more like the original CTR has less fluff. The track list and roster may be minimal, but all of the best tracks and characters came from the OG game, aside from the crunch of course. The adventure and time trials might be easy, but they're more fun to speedrun thanks to a higher skill ceiling. There may not be any online play, but you can't beat an old-fashioned shared screen. Speaking of, while I couldn't get any footage for this video, this game has hands down my favourite battle mode in any racer. Not too many opponents, fully customizable weapons, funny tags based on your performance, and Nitro Court is golden. I remember renting this game from my local Choices store, that's the UK's old equivalent to Blockbuster, playing battle mode with my sister before finally receiving the game as a birthday present. The smallest actions in our childhoods can make a game eternally memorable, can't they? But it helps to combine them with a game that quite simply will never age. It's just as fun today as it was in 1999. The millennium may turn, but Crash will always have fun games, whether he's behind the wheel or not. Hold on, what is that? So that leaves us with just 2 platformers from the main trio. Which one do you think's going to fall into second place? Well, I can tell you... Yep, it's Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back, rather fittingly actually. It got 84 votes, a healthy but not winning number. I feel a bit rubbish for this. Crash 2 is my favourite video game of all time, bar none, but I'll try to remain impartial. Crash 2 opens with a bang, or rather a scream. The amazing Clancy Brown steps in to voice Dr. Cortex, and he's not just perfect, he's essential. The perfect mix of sinister, callous, and funny. This Cortex most definitely felt like he could take over the world. Now, a lot of people feel like Crash was always an idiot from the start because of how easily he believes Cortex into handing him over the crystals. But as the game's instruction manual states, he's a hero who believes, but he's no fool. Crash is stuck in the warp room whether he likes it or not, might as well play along. The stakes of this game feel a lot higher than before, even after Cortex comes clean about his deception. He was centimeters away from brainwashing our entire planet after all. To get to that point, however, Crash must brave 25 new platformer gauntlets along with some secret stages. Immediately, the decision to switch to the warp room format is so darn good, as is the ability to save your game anytime. Sure, it removes the feeling of a grand journey, but instead it makes you feel like you're traveling around the world, which is still very nice. Many level themes are repeated throughout the game, a common criticism, but by both their structure, obstacles, and increase in challenge, they all still manage to feel distinct. You're never going to mix up your air crashes with your plant foods, for example. You won't even mix up your fast-paced rocket with your more methodical marathon pack attack. Yes, the jetpack. Screw you, you're all wrong, it's great. I love how it rewards you for mastering its unusual controls by letting you just zoom through the level at top speed. That's also why I like the final boss more than most do. I don't care how easy it may be. The outer space, end of the world vibes are spot on, and traveling max pelt is just plain fun. The bosses as a whole may not be the strongest parts of the game, but it's still decent fun, the way you romp around this adorable professor, these badass lizards, this terrifying cyborg, and him. Though, actually, controlling Crash as a whole is a total joy. He could be a little slippery in the first game, but now he's got a new slide-in and high jump move that's fluid like water to use. He also has a devastating belly flop that treats you to this beautiful mug every time. And he can crawl. It isn't very useful, but he sure looks like he's having fun doing it. All of this is in benefit of getting around the incredibly fun levels, which have just the right amount of difficulty and pacing. Sure, that hidden Cold Hard Crash box is a nuisance, but it's not like they're going to make an entire game of Cold Hard Crash like oh. And yes, some of the colored gems may not be super obvious, looking at you, Mr. Blue, but I much prefer how they're hidden in this game compared to the others. Look, let's face it, no game is going to be 100% perfect, even if we do score as a 10 out of 10. I'm not a fan of backtracking in the pits, and to use another game as an example, my best friend's favourite game is Sonic the Hedgehog 2, but he never looks forward to Hilltop Zone. The point is, I can see why this game only reached second place, and yet none of these negatives will stop me from loving this game to bits till the end of my life. It's pure, perfect platforming, with gimmickry kept on a fine line. I've 100%ed this game more times than I can count, and I may very well do so again soon after my work here is done. But I have a long-standing video to finish first, and that brings us to the poll's winner. Securing a whopping 90 votes to take home the gold, it's Crash Bandicoot Warped! As much as I love Crash 2, how could it be anything else? Warped was a gateway to the series for many fans, with a heavy advertising campaign being no small part of that. All the advertisement in the world wouldn't help if it wasn't a brilliant game in its own right. As one voter put it, it's my favourite out of the Naughty Dog games. As a casual player, I enjoy the gameplay variety. I know the vehicle sections are a bit of a controversial topic, but I find them fun. And the time travel theme makes for fun visuals and interesting levels to play. Right out of the gate, Warped oozes style and substance in equal measures. Uka Ruka is an intimidating presence, as is his newest minion, Dr. Entropy. I never tire of that time twister musical theme. Crash's base moveset hasn't changed, but the places he gets to use them are brighter than ever. Shimmering blue seas, grandiose castle grounds, towering Arabian street, the future... Wait, this isn't right, where are all the smartphones? Again, even though the level themes are repeated, they all manage to have their own individual identities. You'd be amazed how much a few new enemies, or a change in the weather or time of day, can do for a level's mood. Blocking your way to said new levels are the bosses, and I'm confident in saying that Warped has the best of all of them. Whether you're making Tiny very happy in front of a crowd, breaking their rules and the butter with Dingo Doll, or throwing hands of Cortex while Aku Aku protects you from Ukaruka, none of these miss. Plus, they all reward you with brand new moves. Now, this is probably my biggest gripe with the game. Some of these moves aren't especially useful, while others are almost too good, like levels were never planned around them being broken so much. Bonus rounds tend to put the moves to the best use, but still, it's not to say that they aren't unwelcome, just not the most well thought out. Besides which, there are plenty of levels that you can't even use them on. Yep, vehicles. Warped has a lot of them. The ever underrated scuba gear, becoming greased lightning on your motorbike, and the one nobody likes. Aside from the last one though, do you know why these are all still fun to play? It's because they don't have Insane's crap controls.
Objection!
No, actually, it's because they don't break away from the core fun of a Crash Bandicoot game. Your means of travel may change, but you're still smashing all of the boxes, dodging the obstacles, and getting through the levels at a quick pace. All to the accompaniment of a soundtrack that simply refuses to be anything less than an earworm. And when you're done playing levels the old-fashioned way, it's time for the time trials. Not only do they house the all-important relics needed to guard the secret levels, they're a game within a game. You only need the gold class relics to beat the game, but why stop there? Naughty Dog always did like slapping time trials into their games, but never has it been more fitting than Crash Warped. And no awkward hidden secrets here either. Well, almost. Warped may be easier than Crash 2, but for all the right reasons. Crash Bandicoot Warped isn't just Naughty Dog's magnum opus, it's a love letter to 3D gaming. It looks good, it sounds like ASMR, it plays like a Christmas morning, and it does it all with a silly Bandicoot smile. Accessible yet challenging, willing to experiment without overdoing it, Warped is deservedly the community's favourite Crash Bandicoot game. I'd like to close this out now with a fitting comment from one of my voters. The fandom takes the series for granted. Some franchises wish they could have this many solid games. We should stop fighting over which era was the best and celebrate the Crash Bandicoot series as a whole more often. You, my friend, are absolutely right. Maybe this video has inspired you to look at some other Crash games that you never would have considered, or made you think differently about some. I really hope it has. Thank you very much for watching, and for everyone who took part in the survey. Now, where are all the comments saying that Titan's GBA should have won instead? Anyone? Hello?